This is the Andy Project Podcast, episode number 1. Welcome to the Andy Project Podcast. Our focus is on inspirational stories, tools, and tips for those 50 and over. I'm your host, Nadine O, and today we're joined by Cutman Frank Friel. Take a listen. Hello, Frank. Thank you for joining me here on the Andy Project. You're not done yet. I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day to, help me, help others dealing with things. How are you feeling today?
I feel pretty good today. The weather's nice, humidity's low, makes me feel a lot better.
Awesome. Well, we're joined here with Frank Friel from Drexel Hill. I met Frank a couple years ago. Was it a couple years, maybe?
Oh, longer than that, probably about seven years ago.
Has it been that long? Wow. Yeah, it's always a pleasure talking with you. You always had all these wonderful nuggets of stories about your experiences and the people that you came in contact with throughout your careers, your many careers. And for all those who may not know or have heard of you, Frank, you used to work for the transportation system here. What did you do there?
I handled press relations and marketing and advertising, and part of that I was also the unofficial film coordinator. Anybody who made feature films or commercials or even school projects who needed any type of a transit background, like a bus, a trolley, or subway, I had to coordinate that type of thing. So it was mainly marketing, press relations, and this film coordination thing. That's basically what I did.
Now, did you receive formal training or educational training through like college or of any type?
No, I was an English major in college. And when I went into the Marine Corps, I was a reporter in the Marine Corps, a journalist they call it. That's really where I learned how to write, believe it or not. And then when I came out, I worked at Chilton Company as an editor of one of their magazines. And then from there I went to SEPTA, and I was with SEPTA for 23 years before I retired.
And so that's interesting. So did you retire from the military, or you just...
No, I enlisted for I did a couple of years, and then when I came out, that's when I got the job at Chilton Company. I was there for a couple of years, and then from there, that's when I went to SEPTA. And I had worked for the PTC when I was in college. That was the private company that was the predecessor of SEPTA. I was what they call a traffic checker. You would stand on a corner, count the number of people on the bus, time the bus or the trolley or whatever. So I knew some of the people who were then at SEPTA when the PTC became SEPTA. So after the job at Chilton ended, the magazine was sold to a company in New York. I looked up a friend of mine who I'd worked with at the PTC who was now at SEPTA, and that's how I happened to be there at the right time, because public relations was looking for a replacement for a guy who was going to be leaving in 2 weeks, and I just happened to be at the right place at the right time, and that's how I got that job.
Would you consider that luck, or just knowing the right people, or just putting yourself out there?
You know, it's funny how that came about. I wasn't thinking of going to SEPTA. I was downtown one day looking around, buying some old books, and there was when I was waiting for the trolley down at 13th Street Station, there was a little SEPTA newsletter that was lying on the ground, and I picked it up and I looked through it, and then a light bulb went on. I said, this is interesting, because this is all writing, and I worked in the magazine. I thought, why don't I go to SEPTA? I mean, I hadn't thought about it at that point. And I I went to SEPTA, and the guy who had written a lot of the articles in the magazine, I started to work with him when I was hired. He was one of the guys that I worked with. So I just happened to pick that newspaper up that particular day, and that's when I said, you know, I should try SEPTA. I had never thought about it up to that point. So I guess maybe it was, once again, being at the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I agree with you. I found myself in particular situations where it just happened to be there and the information was there, or, someone hands off, your name and number, and you're right in the door, and it could be a last minute thing.
Yeah,
I find that
exactly.
pretty amazing how things come together. Now, that's not the only thing you've done throughout your life. There have been other things that you've done aside from working at SEPTA.
Yeah.
What would you say was your most unique job experience that you've had?
Well, I suppose I never expected to be doing this particular job. I was working with fighters when I was at SEPTA. I was doing public relations for a fighter, and I became his manager. And then I became a cut man for fighters. Those are the guys that go in and stop the bleeding, reduce the swelling, supposedly, and all of that. I never really pictured myself doing that kind of work, but I did that for about 23 years. I worked with fighters. I was in boxing for over 30, but I did the cut work for about 23. And it's a job, when you mention it to people, you say I was a cut man, they look at you like, what does that mean? You mean you cut people or something? I said, no, it's actually the opposite. I try to stop the bleeding from people who did get cut, see? And that, I never thought I'd be doing anything like that, but I did it, and it was interesting, I must say. I don't recommend it as a career choice for most people, but it was something I did because I had to do it, and the circumstances warranted that I had to become one, and so I did it, and it was interesting. It had its moments,
Now, you say circumstances warranted that you
Yeah.
had to do that. Is this one of those moments where you're right place at the right time, or the wrong place at the
Well, once
right
again,
place?
when I got involved in boxing, I hooked up with a trainer named Jimmy Beecham, who was a hell of a fighter in Philadelphia for years, and he and we had a few fighters, and we were going to turn them pro, and Jimmy was going to do the training, and he and I we would be the co-managers of these fighters, and he said, somebody has to be a cut man, Frank, because we can't afford to pay a cut man all the time because we didn't really have much money. Luckily, once again, there was a guy in Philly, probably one of the best cut men in boxing. His name was Eddie Aliano, and he took me under his wing and taught me how to do the work, the materials I had to use, and I guess it was again a situation of maybe being in the right place at the right time, because lots of times older cut men, the guys who've been around for years, are very reluctant to share their secrets or training methods with new guys coming up. But Eddie wasn't like that. He trained me, and he trained other people too. So once again, it might have been the situation of, wow, I'm here and I'm trained by one of the best guys in the world. It was like, you can't really beat that, So I think that definitely helped me to do what I did as a cut man, because otherwise you can't go to school for it. I mean, there's the only way you learn it is somebody teaches it to you, and then you have to eventually go in and work on cuts, and that's how you get experience and go on in that so-called profession.
Yeah, wasn't there a movie that came out about a cut man?
$1 Million Baby was written,
Oh, yeah,
that was a
that's
short
right.
story written by a guy who was actually a cut man in California.
Okay.
And he wrote a series of boxing stories, and one of them was made into that movie. Clint Eastwood was the trainer. He wasn't the cut man. But yeah, interesting enough, a Cutman actually wrote those stories. And
Gotcha.
people would say, why don't you write stuff, Frank, about being a Cutman and this and that? This is before that movie was made. And my response was, no, nobody's going to read about that stuff. And here comes Clint Eastwood with the movie. So,
Right.
yeah, I kind of missed the ball on that one. I think.
Just one time you
Yeah,
missed the
wow.
ball. But you made up for it with the experiences that you had along the side of the ring, would you say?
Oh, yeah, it got me to, I worked with a lot of fighters who never really made it. Some were names that nobody had ever heard of. But working with these guys, you realize, boy, these guys, this is a tough, tough business here, boxing. And these guys train very hard, and a lot of them are never going to make it, but yet they come to the gym, they train, they keep their weight under control, and they have these tough fights for little money. And it's like, look at these guys doing this kind of thing here. You know, this is really tough. And you learn that, hey, you know what I'm doing, or when I'm working at SEPTA, it's not really a tough job. You know, I mean, you complain about different things going on in your job, but then you look at these guys here who are in a really, really tough job, and they're doing it, and they're not getting paid much, and it gives you kind of a wake-up call, like, what are you complaining about? What are you worried about? You know, nobody's hitting you upside the head when you're at work, and it gives you a little inspiration to you know, keep on doing with your job. Don't complain about it, because boy, there are guys that have it really, really hard compared to you. You know, so that was one of the things the big thing I picked up, I think, watching these guys, because I admired these guys. They were really they put their heart and soul in it, and you knew they weren't going to get anywhere. They weren't going to make $1 million, okay, but still they persisted, and you had to admire them. I really did.
Why do you think that was? That they kept doing something, that, it's like football players or kids in high school, they dream of, playing in the NBA, and the majority of them aren't going to make it, but yet they play. I mean, I think, wouldn't you say it's feeding into a particular aspect or the soul of a person to push themselves?
Yeah, and a lot of these guys I work with came from very poor economic situations. I mean, really poor, and they knew they weren't going to make it in football or basketball because they weren't that big. They were smaller guys. And this was, if you had some kind of athletic ability, this is one of the few avenues open for them. And they probably had little jobs on the side, but they also just decided, look, I'm going to try this, because a lot of guys in the hood do this. Some succeed, some don't. And they, I think, said, look, well, let me try this and see what I can get out of it, and maybe make a few bucks here and there and help my family. I think that's what drives them. And it's not a sport where you require a lot of financial investment as far as equipment and things like that go. And usually they knew somebody that did it, or maybe they had a relative that did it, and so they go and they try it, and they keep persisting at it, and they make a few bucks here and there, and hopefully they don't get injured too badly, and then hopefully they move on to more solid employment. But I think it's just that desire, look, I got to try this, I got to make a few bucks at it. Other people do it, so I'm going to give it a try and just see where it goes. I think that's what drives most of those guys, because they know they can't make it in the bigger sports because they're just not physically big. And a lot of them, they really don't make it, but they do try, and they make a few bucks, and hopefully they learn some life lessons that they take with them to more gainful employment.
Okay, you're listening to the Yandy Project. You are not done yet. I'm Nadine O, and we're sitting down with Frank Friel from Drexel Hill. Cutman in the past, worked at SEPTA, now is enjoying the life, still writing, still, kind of watching from the sidelines of about boxing and what's going
Yeah.
on, the cutting edge and whatnot. And we just want to continue with the conversation about, doing new things or adding to what you're already doing. Yeah, I mean, you worked full time at SEPTA, and yet you were a cut man on the side.
Yeah, I was a cut man. I also helped train and condition fighters,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
then after about 23 years, once again, I guess I was in the right place at the right time, and I hooked up with Bernard Hopkins, who at that time was the world middleweight champion, and I started to work with him at the gym in Upper Darby, Pal, where he was training, and we kind of, I guess, hit it off because I was with him for 8 years, and I got a chance to travel. Well, we worked Vegas for 5 fights, and then Los Angeles and places like that. And that was quite an experience because I never thought I would be working boxing at that level. I mean, that was pay-per-view from Las Vegas with Hopkins was the highest level you could really work at. And during part of that time, he was also the pound-for-pound champion, meaning he was the best fighter in the world at any weight. And it was quite an experience working with Bernard because here was a guy who turned his life around 180 degrees. He had been in prison for 5 years, did hard time, and he told me that I had a choice. I could either become a career criminal, which I was already at that time, or I could decide to follow boxing because he did box in prison as an amateur. He said I could go either way. I decided I don't want to come back to prison anymore. It's not something, he said, that really interested him after 5 years. So he turned his life around, became a fighter, and became the greatest fighter ever from Philadelphia. And that was an example for me. Here's a guy who he just turned everything around. It was amazing. His mental discipline was fantastic, and he achieved something that very few fighters ever achieve.
What was that?
He became a world champion. He's going to be in the Hall of Fame. He made a lot of money, and he also was able to get into other things outside of boxing while he's still in boxing. He's in real estate. He worked with some local fashion people. He was just like a model and things like that. And this is a guy who was headed towards life imprisonment eventually. And he just decided, no, I don't want this. I don't want this. And he turned it around completely. And now he's, the greatest, everybody would say the greatest fighter from Philadelphia, no question about it. And that's a hell of an example of a guy who really turned it around. And I enjoy working with Bernard. He was a funny guy. We had some good times together. He's a tough guy. But to me, that was, I guess, the biggest achievement I had in boxing. But you see, it's not so much, working with Hopkins and Las Vegas and all that. Along the way, I was able to help several other fighters who never really made it, help them get other jobs for the rest of their life. You help them financially. See, that was really the most positive thing I did with boxing, being able to be in a position to help these other guys who were never going to become champions.
Through the art of boxing.
Yeah, and help them. And one guy joined the police force, and he worked in highway patrol. Actually, he worked for my cousin, who was the commander of highway patrol. And his name was Lonnie Adams. I hadn't seen him for years and years. And when my cousin's mother died, there was a tremendously big funeral. All highway patrol is very close-knit.
Sure.
And they turned out for the funeral, and I asked my cousin, you think Lonnie will be there? He said, oh, yeah, he'll be there. He wants to see you. So I went up to the funeral, and I hadn't seen Lonnie for, Wow, it was over 20 years at that time, maybe longer. Now, when I worked with him, he weighed 153 pounds. And I was looking around to see him, and this big guy came up to me. He was over 200 pounds, and he put his arms around me, and he's all, Frank, man, I'm glad to see you. And I turned around, I said, wow, look at this guy. And he said, God bless you, Frank, for what you did for me. See, that to me was the most important, one of the most important things I did in boxing. Working with guys who eventually went on and had good lives and come from bad circumstances. Lonnie's circumstances when he was younger weren't that great. But here he is now. He was in highway patrol. I think he's in traffic now. Those were the things that really, I think, as far as the boxing goes, really meant a lot to me. You know, helping other people and seeing them at least get good jobs and go on, you know.
Yeah, I really do think it's important to give back or help others along the way, and everyone has their own desires, things that just sort of stimulate them to become better at something, and I think that's just that's wonderful, and to be a part of that and to see the result of
Yeah.
the fruits of your labor, so to speak.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people see the other side of sports, aside from, okay, this person won this and they won that, but not what took them to get there, the change that happened, the shift from, saying, I'm nothing, to saying I can be something or I can do something, greater. I think that's really wonderful. And it was one of, your stories about being a cutman and then working with boxers. Even, I think there was a story you told me about an older gentleman that was still boxing at a latter time frame, and he was up at the gym over here on Westchester Pike. Do you happen to remember that story? It was an older guy, definitely older guy. And that the fact that he was still boxing, even after that time frame.
Oh, well, there's a guy, a friend of mine, I think this might be the guy you're referring to. He's older than me now. He's 72, 73 years old. And he was coming to the gym regularly 2 or 3 days a week. And he still works full time at his job. But he still found time to come to the gym. I would go to the gym with him 1 day a week. He would go two days, maybe 3 days a week. And he was very faithful. I mean, he would go up there in the summer, and it gets very hot up in that gym in the summer. But Tom kept coming up, and even the young guys, or the younger guys in the gym, when Tom would come in, and when Tom and I be in the ring, they'd look at Tom and say, look at that guy in there. Everybody was always impressed with Tom, like, wow, here's a guy who's up in years, but he's still in pretty good shape, and yet he does this regularly, okay? And all the young guys were very impressed with Tom. They said, well, look at this guy, and he inspired me, even though we were fairly close in age. He was older than me, but I'd say, well, and this is a guy who's working full time now. He works 5 days a week, 8, 9 hours a day, but still finds time to go to the gym and train, which means, hey, look, you can come up with excuses why you don't want to do a little exercise, but look at this guy here. He's working full time. He's 70 years old, and he's still coming to the gym. I mean, come on. You can't use excuses when you look at what this guy's doing here,
So what would you say to folks out there that are having a tough time or challenged with the fact of staying in shape? I mean, it sounds like for Tom, that was like the secret sauce to keep him healthy, keep him sharp, keep him going. But even for me, it's a bit of a struggle, even to find like a morning ritual to do to just so that a regiment that I'm doing every day? What would you say to folks out there struggling?
Well, there's some things that are very easy to do that require no equipment. And you don't have to go to the gym to do these things. I think one of the best things anybody can do is walk, okay? You have to walk. If you can do a little cardio on a bike or a treadmill, that's good too. That's even better. But everybody can walk. And everybody can do some resistance exercises, push-ups. Everybody, you do push-ups, pull-ups if you have a pull-up bar. You can do sit-ups. You can do that. The other area that a lot of older people neglect, and it's very important, is you have to stretch. You have to keep the joints loose and limber because they stiffen up, okay? Yeah. It's like a hinge that gets rusty. If it's not moved around, it's hard to move. You have to move the joints and stretch them. The other area that a lot of people don't even think about, and it's very important, and it can be improved a lot, is balance. Older people's balance sometimes is not very good. That's why they fall and hurt them. So it's one of the reasons why they fall. The balance is not good. You can work on balance by doing balance exercise. Very simple. If you're home brushing your teeth, you stand on one foot for 20 seconds. Then you stand on another foot. If you're washing the dishes or drying them, the same thing. You go on one foot for 20 or 30 seconds. Then stand on the other foot for 20 or 30 seconds. Things like that. Your balance will start to improve. Stretching to keep nice and flexible and balanced as you get older, I think that's very important. Along with strength work, you have to keep doing things to maintain your strength. And you can maintain your strength even as you get older. You may not be able to lift what you did, like say when you're in your 20s if you're a weightlifter, but that's okay. You can keep the strength, you can maintain it. If you don't do these things, your strength is going to drop, your muscle mass will decrease, your balance will be off, you won't be flexible, you'll really be old. That's being old. If you are strong, if you're flexible, if your balance is good, if your cardio system is fairly good, I got to say, I don't think you're going to be classified as old. Chronologically, you may be up there.
Right.
But if you feel good and you have all these other things working, what difference does it make? You can't stop the clock, okay? The years go by, but you don't want to just sit around and just watch them go by. You can do all these things and maintain health and, of course, eat right. Everybody knows the things you should eat and the things you shouldn't eat. It's not a big secret.
Sure. Sugar, no.
Yeah, junk food, heavily
no.
fried food and all. Drink a glass of red wine now and then, they say is good, stuff like that. If you do those and also maintain a positive attitude, saying, look, I know I'm getting older, but I still can do these other things. I added another push-up to my thing. Okay, I'm getting a little better, see? I can balance for 45 seconds. I say I'm getting better. Okay, I'm older, but I'm getting a little better doing these other things. I'm accomplishing something here. I'm actually moving a little forward in this stuff, little by little by little. That's what you have to maintain that attitude. Look, yeah, I'm getting older, but I still can improve these little areas here. That's I think the secret there. It's not a big secret, but people just don't want to make the effort. Oh, I can't do it. I'll be going to the doctor, and the doctor will take care of me. No, you have to be proactive. You can't rely on the medical system. If you do, well, wow, that's a shame. You'll be in bad shape.
Yes, definitely. I agree with you. So, Frank, you're not done yet, then.
Hopefully not.
You are not done yet, and it definitely shows because I'm impressed that you still have a little pep in your step, and you're taking things in stride, and you're still doing new things.
You see, that was one of the good things about working with fighters all those years. All the fighters obviously were a lot younger than me. And when you're when you watch young people and you be around people like athletes, you have to maintain a certain amount of physical fitness yourself, because if you're showing a guy how to do this or do that and you can't do it, the guy's going to look at you like, oh, this guy's talking, you know. So that forced me to stay in fairly good shape, you know, because the fighters are looking at you and saying, well, if this guy can't do it, what's he talking about, you know. And the other thing is you have to also mentally be around people as you get old. You have to get out and be around people.
Yeah.
Socialize, I guess, interaction is the word, but you have to you have to get out and be around people and talk and this and that. It's easy to stay in the house and watch the computer and all of that. That's no good. You really got to get out.
Get out and do things.
Get out, yeah.
Get out and do things, yeah.
Yeah. Because I remember years ago, a friend of mine, he was retiring from the city. And he said, boy, I can't wait to retire. I can't wait to retire. I'm just going to sit and relax. And his father told him, he said, hey, look, let me tell you something. If you think it was hard to do something 8 hours a day, he said, you try doing nothing for 8 hours a day.
Yeah.
Then you'll find out how hard that is. You know, you have to do something, whatever it is. And
learn something new.
learn something new, a language, or even get a computer, which I have. I bought 6 years ago. I have a love-hate affair with it. Sometimes I feel like throwing it out the window. But yeah, you have to keep on picking up things, trying to do things. Use common sense. Obviously, you're not going to become a high wire walker when
Or a
you're
skateboarder
older.
or something
Yeah,
like
you're
that.
not going to be a mountain climber, I don't think.
There are some folks that are
There
doing
are
it.
some folks, yeah.
Yeah.
But you have to use a little common sense. Especially if you're a guy, the macho thing has to be put in the closet. You can't
Right.
trot that macho thing out all the
Gotcha.
time. That's past. You got to forget about that.
Well, if you're still with us, and I'm glad you are, because you're hearing us right now, I'm sitting here, Nadine O, sitting here with Frank Friel in Drexel Hill, talking about staying fit as you get older, changes, adapting in life, and doing new things. And as we come to a close, there was a couple of things I wanted to talk to. I commend you because now you have been doing things at Reading Terminal with a friend. Help me out here.
Yeah,
At a wine
he's a
company.
manager of a Blue Mountain Winery retail outlet in Reading Terminal. Blue Mountain Wines are up in the Lehigh Valley. They've been in business for roughly 25 years, I think. And the manager of the big retail outlet in Reading Terminal Market, I became a friend of his, younger guy, and I just help out down there. I really don't do anything monumental, but I keep an eye on the girls who are the sales girls. I do little favors for them. I buy them coffee. I do this and that for them, and make sure they don't get bothered by, let's say, every now and then you have a guy comes in who thinks he's, I don't know, God's gift to women, and maybe harasses them a little bit. We kind of put a damper on that. And I've also met a lot of other vendors in there that I do things for. And the Reading Terminal Market has so many people coming in there. 6 million people a year from conventions, they come from all over the world. And it's very interesting meeting a lot of these people. And I enjoy it. I enjoy going down there. And of course, there's great food down there. It's fantastic for food. And you get out and you meet people and you're able to talk to people. Tourists ask, where can I get a cheesesteak? Where's the best Italian restaurant? And since I grew up in the city, I grew up in Southwest Philly and I worked all my life in the city, I'm kind of familiar with a lot of the places. And it's interesting to interact with people because I think a lot of people have the idea of Philadelphians maybe a little unfriendly, they're a little cold.
No.
But once they come in and we interact with them and we tell them, look, you can go here, go there, and they say, wow, that's great. I really appreciate you giving me all that information, I didn't expect to be treated like this, see? And it makes you feel good that, hey, yeah, we're we're Philly. We boost Santa Claus and all of that, but we treat people well,
Yeah,
you know.
definitely.
Yeah, and that I enjoy it. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Frank. I really enjoyed our conversation today, and I hope the listeners out there also got something out of it. One of the key factors that we discussed is learning new things, stretching, staying fit, active, should I say, staying active, and stretching is really important for people as we get older. You know, I myself, I'm over 50, just a little over 50, and one of the things that one of my experiences is the stiffness in the joints and whatever, and trying to keep a regiment and not have any excuses for it. So I would like to extend an invitation for you if you would be interested in later episodes or giving some advice for exercises that people over 45 at 45 and up to stay in shape, stay healthy. And I hope you will join us.
Oh, absolutely. I look
Okay.
forward to that.
Okay.
That'd be interesting.
I appreciate that. Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Frank Friel, for joining me here today. And we'll talk again soon. Like what you hear? Just trek over to our website at yandyproject.com. You can leave a comment there. We'd love to hear from you. And whatever you do, subscribe so you can stay informed on the latest posts and updates of our podcast. See you there. I'm your host, Nadine O, and remember, you are not done yet.